Suriel, Dragon Ball FighterZ, your first cover story.
Yeah.
Congratulations. How was it?
Thank you. It was fantastic. The flights were long and the cities were great.
Yeah. So a lot of wandering around Tokyo with Suriel, which was very fun. It was his first time in Tokyo. Kyle, it was your second. We were just there for Pokemon.
Just a couple months ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Hey, we should right up front. One of the biggest things we learned about the game was how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And you've been saying it wrong, Hanson.
Fix me.
It's Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Also, we learned that was originally the code name.
Yeah.
In a very, I don't want to call it lazy. Not going for a lazy dev's approach, but it's clearly a brand thing, and they even talk about it in an interview we did
Z
about
is Americans love the letter Z at the end of Dragon Ball
because we love Dragon Ball Z, whereas Japan it's much more seen as just Dragon Ball. It's just the overall series. So they just had that as the code name. They're like, F it, let's just go with Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Hard
the
Z
official
there at the
pronunciation.
end.
So we have an entire month of coverage. I wonder, what was the biggest takeaway, Suriel? You're a huge fighting game fan. To actually dive in deep with this game and especially like interact with the like mad geniuses over at ArcSys. Tell me, what had the biggest impression?
I think the biggest takeaway is how seriously they are taking this project, not just from the idea of, oh, we want to make a very good Dragon Ball game, but I think they see it as sort of so in recent years, fighting games have started becoming more platforms and just, all right, we put a game out and then we just start working on the next one. So they'll Street Fighter V sort of released and wasn't great, but they've been updating it. Killer Instinct gets regular balance updates and they have like seasons, and I think Namco started to see some of that appeal of let's make a game and then update it for a long time and keep people hooked. And they sort of started that with Xenoverse, Xenoverse 2, which they've been rolling out content updates for a while. And I think with FighterZ, they want to have that sort of fighters. Sorry,
I didn't know what game
it's going to
you were
stick
talking
around.
about.
Sorry. They want this game to stick around for a while and not just be another Dragon Ball Z game. They want it to be sort of like their marquee Dragon Ball title for a while, along with the Xenoverse stuff.
Yeah, they definitely pitched it as like not exactly a two train tracks moving forward, but that was kind of not necessarily that it's limited to that, but it's very much like, yeah, we want fighters and we want Xenoverse as like strong things to plow ahead with the Dragon Ball brand. And we spent a lot of time with Bandai Namco, and that was the interesting part too, is outside of the development, just talking about working with that license for so many years. We were able to interview Uchiyama-san. We'll have to post a full interview later on the website and whatnot, but he's been producing Dragon Ball games since the early to mid 90s.
He started with Ultimate Battle 22, which was in the interview, which will be online in full. It's interesting because he said he was actually pretty young at the company at that point, and that was actually the transition from like Super Nintendo to PlayStation.
Yeah,
and one of the things he said was like, oh, in retrospect, they probably shouldn't have put like a new guy in a console transition game, But then his big, I guess you could call it claim to fame, is Budokai.
He was kind of the champion, at least of the way it was pitched to us, as like he was the Budokai guy, and you cannot understate the impact that Budokai had on Bandai Namco and also just Dragon Ball games in general. That was a huge takeaway on the trip. Honestly, I love the first and third Budokai. The second one, that world map and those dumb little hopping cards was such a stupid system to tell the story through.
Playing the part of Devil's Advocate, please. What the hell are you talking about? The Budokai. What is
it's Dragon Ball Z Budokai. It were fighting games on the PS2, which you remember being great and go back and look at footage and you kind of want to vomit. But
the big thing about them is like they reinvigorated Dragon Ball in a way. Like they had kind of stepped away from the games for a while, but then it started getting popular in America. Dragon Ball Z found an audience in America, so they released this new fighting game. And for like me and Hanson and Suriel, like that game coming out was a big deal. It was like the first new Dragon Ball Z fighting game. Like, because like I was a fan and I would look back and see these old Super Nintendo games and PlayStation games and stuff that I didn't have access to. And then this was like, it actually came out in America 2 weeks before it came out in Japan. So that's why and it sold like incredibly well. So it was a big deal for Dragon Ball video games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of touches on a larger topic that was also a recurring theme throughout the trip. And I think just being a Dragon Ball fan for so long, it's always been this aspect, but it's just fun to dive into it. Like the time discrepancy between Dragon Ball in the West and Japan. Because for us, I was like reading episode synopses and whatnot, like looking forward in the end of the Buu saga and whatnot. That was fun that fans just translated and whatnot. But there's always been this weird discrepancy where in Japan it was like, oh, that old show Dragon Ball, like Dragon Ball Z, that old show that we kind of remember from our childhoods. Whereas for us, it was like early 2000s especially. It's like, Dragon Ball Z is the coolest, most modern, epic thing ever,
It's changing animation.
Right. And so, with Budokai, like everyone referred to it, the producers like, it was kind of this old brand, this old TV show, we didn't think people really cared anymore in Japan.
Yeah.
But it was huge.
Yeah, and now we have that again with Super in a way, right?
Right.
Where even games like, Battle of the Gods or something came out on PS3 not too long ago, and it's like, what is this red-haired Goku? There's always been this fascinating edge, this blurry edge, at least in the West, unless you're a super hardcore fan of just trying to figure out, like, who are these characters? Like, we go to a shop in Japan and be like, what? This guy's name is Hit? What the hell is this? Just see like these figures where it's like pink-haired Goku. I don't know what this is.
There's always this feeling of like diving into myth making because like when I was a kid and that stuff was airing in the U.S., my cousins in Mexico had already watched all of it because it aired in Spanish. I found out before it aired in English, and so every time I'd go visit, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's this guy named Majin Buu, and he's like this pink thing that he's way stronger than Frieza at all." And I was like, "He's
super into candy.
He's hilarious."
Yeah, and so we just have to wait. Of like, all right, I can't wait for this Majin Buu guy to show up. I can't wait for this Cell thing to happen. And it was sort of always sort of like, you are getting to see things come true in a way.
Yeah. And so that's the weird spot that this game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, lands in. With the Z in the title and what they revealed so far, it feels like it's more of a Dragon Ball Z game, right? It's like, okay, Kid Gohan's in there and whatnot. What was your read on that, Suriel, of who it's trying to cater to specifically?
I definitely think that it is Super Z oriented. But, I mean, it does have a couple characters from Super, Super Saiyan, God, Super Saiyan, Goku, and Vegeta.
Stop. We need to explain this. So Jeff Cork.
That's when the guy loses his freaking mind, right?
Super Saiyan 3 technically is, I think, when they technically lose their mind and eyebrows. So the way it works, if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, we understand it's very silly. And with Dragon Ball Super, the new show, it is only getting sillier and sillier. The way it works, Goku is an alien, like Superman. He's a Saiyan. Has a couple different ways of powering up. Powers up to Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3. Technically, if you include GT, which is controversial at this point, that is Super Saiyan 4.
This is like levels of Scientology.
It really is. Yeah, he's a
yeah.
It absolutely
you have to go talk
is.
to L. Ron Hubbard before you can go Super Saiyan 4.
Get to the right level.
The only medicine they take are sensu beans. And so they've now, with Super, developed a sidetrack, right? So now he can become Super Saiyan God. That's another form. That next level is not Super Saiyan God 2, it's Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. And that's when Goku has blue hair. That is officially what they call it. It is objectively stupid. And even dealing with people who are working hands-on with this license at Arxis, at Namco, there's always a wince when they have to say Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Because, especially in Japanese, they just say SSGSS, apparently.
Yeah.
I definitely got several messages from people on Slack as they were editing the cover story of like, are you sure this isn't a typo? Are you Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Goku? Is that the name of this character? And I had to go, yes, that is what they are calling this person.
And and to kind of get into FighterZ, they're actually treated as separate characters.
Hang on, what is the game?
Yeah, what's the game?
FighterZ. God, I'm the one that set all this up. But yeah, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and Vegeta are both in the game, and then Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta are also in the game. So that's 4 characters that you can fight against each other.
I'm glad we cleared that all up.
And then it's funny too, like watching. There's so much speculation about what characters are eventually going to be announced for this game and whatnot online. But there's this fun stuff, like people are looking in the silhouette on the cover and seeing like, wait, that's Goku, but it looks like he would have black hair. It's not Super Saiyan hair in the silhouette. So does that confirm Goku Black, who's a super character coming up later on, is going to be in the game? I think that's just a Namco, Bandai Namco thing. They just included that silhouette because it looked cool. And like technically Goku transforms. But what did you learn about the overall brand and Toriyama and Shueisha and everything when you're over there, Kyle?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess you're asking this because in the magazine, my sort of part in the cover story was writing about the history of Dragon Ball video games in general, which you can find in the issue. It was interesting to talk to them. I was expecting more about Toriyama, actually, but it sounds like Uchiyama had met him and sort of talked about it once and saying that it was really great. It was like meeting one of my heroes. But it sounds like he's pretty hands off with the games in general.
Distant.
Like he will check in on the sort of scenarios and stuff like that. And he's drawing Android 21 for FighterZ. But otherwise, he's like. It sounds like he's just not that involved in Dragon Ball much anymore, other than just
which is weird.
Story
I think
ideas.
He's sort of supervising and sort of helping to write Super a little bit, but he's not sort of, I am the main creator of Super.
That honor belongs to Shueisha, I guess, which is like, that's something I feel like I learned. Like they have ownership over that. They're the ones bringing it forward. I'd always kind of connected to Toriyama, and he's certainly the creator. But like today, I don't know how involved he is in Dragon Ball.
Well, because he's the creator, because he started the manga with Shueisha, and so they own the rights, I believe, technically, and then Toriyama works within that corporation as the creative genius who they try and squeeze more out of. It's a little bit of a Lucas situation, right? Where it's like, hey, Toriyama, over there in the corner, could you stop working on Dragon Quest or some other nonsense and please come over here and like give this storyline a blessing, give this one a blessing.
Yeah, and blessing is like a good word.
Yeah,
I think that's
he sort of has his own studio. I think it's called, I think he had it or has it at some point called Bird Studio, which is I think a pun on his name. But I think he has sort of his own thing that, you know, further complicates things, obviously. But yeah, the licensing stuff around that stuff was fascinating to learn about.
I was hoping that we'd hear more stories of like, oh man, Toriyama came to the launch party of Budokai 2, got drunk, high-fived everybody, but like he feels very remote. But this Android 21 thing is an interesting angle because that was a big pitch of like, there's a character that's going to be involved in the story mode of the game, Android 21, and he designed it. But then in the trailer reveal, it's like, design inspired by Toriyama. It even had kind of a weird,
very strange
phrasing.
Yeah.
So what does Android 21 look like?
So
she looks
with
cool.
Glasses. She kind of looks like a Dragon Ball take on Harley Quinn. Almost is kind of my first
scientist or like psychiatrist version of Harley Quinn. Yeah,
she's cool. I like her.
She's got black fingernail polish that I think looks really cool. The confusing thing, and we're going to be rolling out features throughout the month that might shine a little more light. I believe you wrote about her in the cover story as well, Suriel. I went back. Prepping for this cover story is just a dream come true. It's so much fun, Quirk. I know this is dorky, but I don't care. So watching like Super, I'd seen the movies, right? But I started watching Super.
Yeah, we all got pretty much caught up on Super.
Yeah, and then I also went back and watched the Android saga of Z, and like watching those parallel and back to back was really fascinating because in theory, a bulk of this story involves the androids. If Android 21 is in it, it gets so messy and complicated trying to understand. The Android saga in Dragon Ball is just Terminator. It's just. They just ripped off Terminator, which is fine. It's cool. It's a cool storyline.
It's okay.
John Connor had a sword.
Right. Obviously. Teach their own.
He really did.
So Android 21 is where it gets confusing because they make it very clear that there's Android 16, the big green guy, right? 17, 18. One of them's a very lovable character. 19 is like the pale face, big fat guy. 20 is technically Dr. Gero himself, who's the scientist who made all the androids and then turned himself into an android. And they make it painfully clear in Dragon Ball Z. It's very funny to go back and watch this clip because adult Trunks and Krillin go to the lab to destroy Cell when he's still just in a test tube or whatever. And he's like, oh my God. Trunks is like, there's all the notes here from all the androids, all the android designs. And they're talking to each other like, are there any other android designs possibly on the table there that we need to know about? And like, absolutely not. He's like, the only other thing here is something about a gas-powered toaster. And they're like, okay, good. Now let's blow it up. So if they pull that out from this game, that the gas-powered toaster was
originally started as a gas-powered toaster.
That would be the best deep cut. Who knows how that was translated?
Turns out on this page of list of all androids, it said page 1, and we had to flip over to page. Oh, we missed it.
Right, but what we know about Android 21 is she's also a scientist.
She's a researcher.
In theory, she's part of the Red Ribbon Army, so she knows Dr. Gero in some way. So maybe she's just another researcher that really looked up to Dr. Gero. Weird if she was a lover. A little weird.
Could be, yeah.
Dr. Gero's very old and creepy.
Strange, yeah.
And then turns herself into an android and then names herself in honor of the lineage of Dr. Gero.
You keep saying that. It seems like you're rolling right past it, which I think you need to slow down for a second. People are able to turn themselves into androids?
This one guy.
You have to be really smart to do it. Not just anyone.
Has he taken his brain and put it into a robot body?
Basically, what he did is he took his brain out. They don't show this, but he takes his brain out and then puts it in a computer and then kind of has a Krang-style dome on his head.
Right. Okay. It's like that episode of C-Lab 2021.
Yeah, that's basically all he has.
Okay.
So here's the deal. That's a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ talk, a lot of Dragon Ball talk. We're going to have a special edition podcast coming up later in the month, which I'm very excited, where we're going to dive in deep on Toriyama even more, his history in the game industry.
Yeah.
Have some exciting interviews involved with that. And then we're also going to have a big old discussion about Dragon Ball Super because I'm very excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think even if you want to prep for that. Maybe
Please.
I think we're gonna try to talk about it in terms of like where the English dub currently is. Right?
That's
that
what
the
we're
plan?
thinking. It's tough to know when to cut off.
So if you want to watch it like with us, keep up with get caught up to the show where it is in the English dub.
Definitely
Yeah.
the first 2 seasons, and I think a few episodes into season 3. Right?
Yeah, around it.
Yeah,
so.
we'll definitely announce it and make it more clear and stuff exactly what
Yeah,
we're going to be
absolutely.
talking about. It was really fun just going on this cover story trip with fighting game expert Suriel and Dragon Ball fan Kyle, because like we'd be
Not an
watching the
expert.
game and Suriel would be like jotting down the numbers and trying to understand like every UI prompt in this fighting game, and Kyle would be like, "Oh man, this is cool. Kid Gohan, Yuna Kamehameha against Cell. That looks badass."
Right.
It's just like the show, guys. It's just like the
I was
show.
so excited just
there
to
were
see it happening. on
A
the
couple
screen.
questions that I think kind of even confused them, because it has a combo system sort of like Guilty Gears, where if you don't do an actual combo but the opponent doesn't see it, the counter changes colors. And so I asked them about that. Is that like Guilty Gear? And they're like, "We'll have to get back to you." And then they're like, "Yes, it's sort of like Guilty Gear." And then the other thing we got was that we noticed that the Dragon Balls were appearing on the actual screen itself.
You can see it in the footage that we just posted yesterday on the site.
Right. And so that was another thing that like we kind of noticed, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we can tell you about them a little bit." They didn't tell us exactly what they
Like
do.
something will happen.
Right.
They hinted, I thought, that like, oh, it'll be interesting for tournament play.
Right. They said it was something new to fighting. It was a feature new to fighting games. And I think there was a little bit of translation issues, because I think they said it's a new system, and they said, well, it's more of a feature. So there was.
So what do you know about the Dragon Balls appearing on the
So
screen?
basically, during a match, certain actions, and I think people have speculated that it could be doing certain combos that are 10, 20, and those would correspond to the number of stars on the Dragon Ball you get.
Real quick, because I love this nerdy stuff. Was this NeoGAF or was it the subreddit noticing and dissecting the
I think it was
gameplay?
the subreddit
Okay, yeah.
founded. And so they said, well, maybe if you do like a 70-hit combo, you'll get the 7-star Dragon Ball. It is shared between both players, so it's not like something where if one player does it, they get powered up or something. It's something that will affect the entire match for both players. And they said it's going to be something new, so it's not like...
I wonder, I saw someone speculate like, oh, the easy solution is Shenron comes out, talks, and then I
Right.
think Beerus makes fun of him. And then, this is a deep cut for everybody.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I
then
got it.
maybe it could like revive a downed character.
Yeah.
Is that
Oh,
the easy
interesting.
solution?
Right.
That's a good thing, because I'm curious if you have any theories about it. I bet it's kind of spectator focused. You know what I mean? Like
Could
for
be.
people watching the game being played, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, they've almost got all 7 of the balls. They're like 3 short. They just maybe if someone pulls off that special 2-hit combo or
Yeah.
something like that. But that's a pretty good bet. I like that idea.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
People were sort of speculating because it could be, oh, maybe it's just a story mode thing. But in the when we were playing those matches, those were all versus mode matches. So it's definitely something that is I feel like it's probably an intrinsic part of the game. But I would
It's
say
always there,
right.
Like
I-
maybe in single player, but
Right.
definitely. In
I think people have
versus.
been a couple people have been saying like, I don't know if this is balanced or like, which is weird because like they haven't said what it does, but I feel like it will add the extra incentive of sort of like, if anyone knows another anime, Yu-Gi-Oh, there's sort of like that Exodia thing of like, if I get this first, I will win the game, and I don't think it'll be that strong. I don't think you'll automatically win the match, but I definitely feel like it'll be a bonus that both players are fighting for.
Yeah, and I bet I also don't think it would result in the players like clashing against, because one of the
Right.
things we talked to them about was like power beams pushing up against one another,
They
and
didn't
like
want
they were like, that's something that they were like,
Because
no, we don't want
there's
that
no
in the
skill
game.
involved. It is just mashing, and we don't
Yeah.
really think that's
Which is
what
a
we
big
want.
thing in
Smart.
Budokai.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that was a smart choice. So it won't come to that. It won't be like get 7 balls and then whoever taps the most gets to talk to
Right.
Shenron or something.
Yeah, maybe people have already checked it out. I'm sure it's playing if you're watching the video version of this. But one of the most exciting things, most exciting moments of looking at this game throughout the trip was we got the 2 best players within Arxis, who were confident that they're the 2 best players in the world at this point.
Yeah,
to
we
go-
asked them point blank, "Are you the best players in the world?" And they kind of looked at each other. And they're like,
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hi,
And so
hi.
we have a match showing off what high level play for Arxis looks like with Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I imagine the tournament scene is eventually going to look like that as well. And it just feels like night and day compared to other Dragon Ball FighterZ gameplay I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing because I think the game does a really good job of making it look cool even if you don't know what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
we played the beta, and I'm familiar with fighting games, but a lot of the times you have to get sort of like really nerdy and go into training mode to like figure out the best possible way to do stuff.
Yeah.
But even just like, all right, I know light, medium, heavy transitions into this, and that stuff still look cool. But like watching 2 people who actually know what they're doing and have been playing for years like incredibly exciting for me.
Yeah. Gameinformer.com/DBZ, everybody. Month of content. There's going to be a lot of good interviews coming up. Just getting to have a video interview with Arxis is exciting. It was a fun trip to that studio and whatnot. Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.